Welcome to the USSA GateJudge orientation and training video. No matter what level of competition, ski races typically involve many individuals playing various roles that all require a different level of expertise, training, and certification. But the most important volunteer of all is you, the GateJudge. This video will help give you an orientation and specific instructions so you can devote your full effort and attention to the tasks at hand. Let's take a look at your duties before the race begins. Your preparation is essential for a successful day on the hill. It is important to dress appropriately and be prepared for all possible weather events. Before you head out to the hill, you should be sure that you have received proper instructions, including where to meet the Chief Gate Judge. You will need the event program or daily schedule, a start list, your GateJudge cards, sharp pencils, extra food, water, sunscreen, and anything else that will make your day more comfortable on the hill. The race cannot start until all gate judges are in place, so be prompt and always be mindful of possible delays at the lift. Let's take a look at the GateJudge cards that you'll be using to keep track of the race. There are two forms of GateJudge cards that you may be asked to use: fault-only cards and fault-no-fault cards. As the name implies, the fault-only card marks only those racer bib numbers who have committed a fault. These cards are more common in giant slalom, supergiant slalom, and downhill. The fault-no-fault card records every racer who passes your position on the hill. As this is a more detailed card, we will focus on this card to provide you with a more complete overview. The information in the header is very important. Be sure to fill this out completely. To do so, you will need to reference the start list for the day's event. Let's start with gender. Male and female are two separate events, often run on the same course. You may be asked to have a separate card for each gender. Identify if the card is for the first run or the second run. Identify which event will be run. Be sure to include your name and cell phone number in the space provided. This will be critical in the event that your observation is questioned or challenged. This section will focus on how to draw an accurate diagram of the gates that are assigned to you. First, let's finish filling out the front of the card. You will need to write down the numbers of the gates that are assigned to you by the Chief Gate Judge. In this example, the Chief Gate Judge assigned gates 8 through 12. Once you have been assigned your gates, now please fill in the gate numbers in the space provided. Work with the Chief Gate Judge to choose an appropriate location where there is a good view of the base of each assigned gate. On the back of your card, you will need an accurate diagram of the gates that are assigned to you. Let's take a look at how you will represent this in your drawing. Here is an example of giant slalom gates that you may be asked to draw. Regardless of the event you are judging, blue gates or poles will be represented by a diamond shape. Red gates or poles will be represented by a circle. You should mark your own position in relation to the gates that you were assigned with the ampersand symbol. Let's take another look at the back of the card. You will need to draw several examples of your section as soon as you are in position. In this slalom example, the various symbols transfer to the drawing of your section on the back of the card. You will want to mark the gates, the corresponding gate numbers, and your position. Many gate judges use the first drawing to represent proper passage. Here you can see this represented by the black line. During the race, do not rely on a printed running order to identify the athlete. Observe and note the bib numbers as each athlete passes your position. There may be times when an athlete runs out of order. As the athlete passes by you properly, mark the bib number on the front of the card and a check mark in the corresponding box marked OK. When an athlete commits a fault, as you can see in this example, you will mark the bib number and use the letter F located in the appropriate box. This will prevent any confusion. On the back of the card, draw a diagram of the fault. If contested, this diagram will be important. In this example, we have marked a straddle of the 10th blue gate. On the diagram, record the bib number of the athlete who is faulted and make any additional notes that you may need to aid your memory of that particular fault. If several athletes make the same fault, you can use the same diagram by recording the bib number of those athletes making the same error. In this scenario, you can see another example of an athlete committing a fault. The upper left-hand diagram represents the example of proper passage. The diagram on the right shows the fault committed by racer 43. In this section, we will take a look at what proper passage means. Let's start with downhill, supergiant slalom, and giant slalom. In these events, most gates are set in a back and forth pattern across the trail. These are called open gates. In an open gate, the imaginary gate line extends across the slope from the turning pole of the inside panel to the first pole in the outside panel. In single gate giant slalom, that imaginary line runs from the turning pole and extends across the hill. Open gates are used in slalom as well as combinations called hairpins and flushes. Two closed gates together are a hairpin, whereas 3 or more closed gates are a flush. In the examples to come, these gate lines may be crossed in either direction. However, it is up to the racer to decide which path will be optimal. Here are 2 examples of an athlete's proper passage of an open gate in giant slalom and slalom. Regardless of event, a competitor has properly passed through an open gate when both of the competitor's ski tips and both feet have passed across the gate line. The same principle applies in a closed gate. The athlete in this example has crossed the gate line between the 2 blue poles and then again through both red poles. Here are a few examples of the options that an athlete has to execute proper passage through a closed flush combination. This example would often be considered optimal passage. In certain situations, for example when an athlete makes a mistake entering into a combination, the athlete has the option to ski the hairpin by crossing the gate line from the other direction. This passage may not be as fast, but satisfies proper passage. This is an example of what would be considered proper and optimal passage through a typical hairpin. As with the flush, the athlete could also cross the gate lines of this hairpin from the opposite direction. Some course setters will set what is called an into hairpin. This hairpin enters and exits the closed gates with a single turn. In the first example, the athlete demonstrates proper passage of the combination by crossing both gate lines. The athlete can also cross both gate lines from the opposite direction to achieve proper passage. In slalom and giant slalom, a delay gate is used. This combination does not require a change in direction. Here, the gate line is displayed, and proper passage is represented in both slalom and giant slalom. Hiking is not allowed in giant slalom, supergiant slalom, and downhill. Hiking represents an unknown risk in these high-speed events that sends athletes down the hill at a fixed interval. Falling or stopping in these events requires the competitor to immediately abandon the run and exit the course line as quickly as possible. This interdiction to continue is a very important focal point for gate judges. If the competitor comes to a complete stop or steps back and then re-enters the race course, the athlete's bib number should be marked as a fault with a diagram on the back. Let's take a look at a few examples to gain further clarity on what is considered a complete stop. This example shows that the athlete's fall ends in a clear stop. The athlete needs to be marked as a fault. The competitor cannot step back or continue after a complete stop. Here, the athlete falls, but is able to maintain his momentum to pass through the next open gate properly. This demonstrates proper passage, and the athlete can continue. In this close call, the athlete falls but carries his momentum as he loops back up toward the gate line that he has missed. His momentum does not stop, and he does not have to step back uphill in order to propel himself across the gate line. Although it is a difficult call, this athlete would be marked with proper passage. Hiking is permitted in slalom as long as it does not interfere with the next athlete. Before we demonstrate a proper hike in slalom, we will take a look at proper passage in single pole slalom. In this slalom configuration, both feet and the ski tips must pass on the same side of the turning pole, following the natural race line of the slalom course. The natural race line crosses the imaginary line between one turning pole and the next one down the hill. Now we can look at a proper hike in the event of a fault. This athlete has straddled the gate and now must hike back up so that both skis pass around the single slalom pole. This athlete has failed to cross the gate line between the poles. He also must hike back up and around the single slalom pole to achieve proper passage. In the event an athlete asked whether he or she has committed a fault or not, be sure to respond with one of these words only. Use the word back if the racer needs to hike back. If the racer is not disqualified, use the word go. After each run, every gate judge card will be collected. Follow the chief gate judge's instructions. Whether your card has a fault or no fault, it is important to make yourself available to answer any questions that the jury may have. Thank you for your time and dedication to the sport of ski racing. We hope you have a great day with your duties as a gate judge.